The box still sat open on the floor, its flaps bent outward like wings. I hadn't even touched the pile of linens when my phone buzzed. I didn't bother checking who it was, I just wiped my hands on my jeans and picked up. No need to see the name. Only one person talks like that. Hey, Calvana, just letting you know we'll be there in 2 hours. Around 20 people just from my side. I told everyone you've got tons of space. If you could figure out the rooms, that'd be great. And food too. Obviously. That was it. No pause. No, how's the move going? No, congrats on your new place. She said it like she was confirming a delivery window. I stood still, letting her words settle in the air like dust, and said, all right. I'd learned a long time ago, when someone's not actually asking for your input, agreeing is the safest move. After the call ended, I didn't move. Just stood there, listening to the creaks of the cottage around me. I'd only been here 3 days. The deed with just my name on it was still in a folder by the counter. My name. But already, Kinley had decided this place was a family vacation spot. Her family's, naturally. I didn't cry. I didn't even sigh. I opened a drawer in the kitchen, pulled out a yellow legal pad, flipped to a clean page, wrote the date at the top and drew a line down the middle. Left side, food, towels, trash bags, sleeping arrangements. Right side, legal enforcement copies. I underlined copies twice. There were 22 folding chairs stacked in the garage. I counted them the week before, imagining dinners with friends, a birthday maybe, something small and happy. But not this. They were coming whether I wanted them to or not, so I chose to prepare, not to host but to defend. I started changing the sheets in the guest room, humming to myself. Not from joy, just something to focus on. By the time I fluffed the second pillow, I'd already made the first phone call. For decades, I'd been living in borrowed spaces. Basements, spare rooms, guest beds where I kept quiet and careful. After Roger passed, Camden said, just until you get your footing, Mom. And I believed him like always. 6 years later, I was still in their basement, folding their laundry, packing school lunches, never asking for much. They liked to remind me I wasn't paying rent, but they never mentioned how much more they took. My time, my help, my quietness. That's why this cottage mattered. Not for the lake view. Not for the new bathroom tiles. But because it was mine. Fully mine. Paid for outright with the money I saved while others spent theirs on cruises and touch-ups and new gadgets. No mortgage. No shared names. Just me. But I knew Kinley. I always knew. Even before that phone call, I knew she wouldn't let me have this clean. She had a way of assuming my things were hers too. If I baked a pie, she brought it to her book club. If I bought new towels, she'd say, perfect, we needed extras. If I finally sat down, she'd ask for the remote. So when she said 20 people were coming, I didn't panic. I didn't argue. I got to work. I stripped beds, laid out clean blankets, scrubbed the bathroom sink with vinegar. Randa, her youngest sister, would definitely complain if the sheets felt rough. I stacked towels, knowing full well I'd never see half of them again. But the work wasn't for them. I wasn't making the place comfortable for guests. I was laying down groundwork for something bigger. The first van pulled in just before noon. 10 minutes later, another. Then a car. People started pouring out, some carrying folding chairs like trophies. I counted as they filed in, 22. Kinley had undercounted, or maybe she just didn't care. The greetings were a blur, no hugs, no warmth. One cousin gave a half-hearted wave while dragging in a suitcase. Another walked straight into the kitchen and opened my fridge without saying a word. No one brought a casserole. No housewarming flowers. They came with Bluetooth speakers, tangled chargers, mugs from their road trip, and expectations. What's the Wi-Fi password? There's only one bathroom down here? You seriously don't have oat milk? I didn't answer. Just stepped aside and let the circus roll through. They didn't act like guests. They acted like they owned the place. Kinley's aunt claimed the master bedroom like it was owed to her. One cousin dumped her duffel on the bed I'd been saving for Camden's visit next month. Teenagers argued over which room had the better view. I gathered my things from the guest room, my folded clothes, my slippers, and moved quietly down the hall. Nobody offered to help. Nobody asked if I was okay giving up my space. Kinley caught me moving and gave me that smile she always used, the one that said a decision had already been made. It's just for 2 weeks. Be flexible. I nodded. Flexibility is a virtue, but only when it serves someone else. So I moved into the smallest room in the house. Didn't complain. Didn't make a scene. Just closed the door behind me, not out of anger but intention. By nightfall, my notepad had shifted. It wasn't a chore list anymore. It was strategy. The stack of papers I prepped that night would change everything. By the third night, the cottage didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a packed dorm. Someone spilled grape soda on the porch cushions and just flipped them over, letting the sticky mess sink in. Kinley's brother decided to fix the leaky faucet, and 10 minutes later I heard the snap of metal, followed by him muttering something about cheap fixtures. Now the water shut-off valve wobbled like it had been kicked. Takeout boxes were piled everywhere. Half-empty beer bottles on the counters. Loud music blaring from multiple rooms at once. My kitchen knives weren't where I left them. The toilet paper holder had been ripped clean off the wall. I stopped asking questions. I just watched. Noted everything. I swept up spilled trail mix from the hallway. Replaced a cracked plate with one I'd stashed away before they arrived, something I'd done instinctively. They came hungry, loud, careless. But what they brought more than anything was entitlement. Thick, heavy, unspoken. Filled the house like smoke. By day 5, it hit me I wasn't waiting for anyone to pay me back. I wasn't expecting thanks either. So I walked out to the porch, still faintly sticky from soda, and grabbed the folder I'd tucked beneath the gardening gloves. My hands were steady as I made the call. The phone rang 3 times before a voice answered. Mrs. Marish? You ready? Yes, I said. I'm done being the hostess. She asked if I had the documents printed. I told her I had 22 copies stacked and waiting on the buffet table. By dawn, the house was quiet in a strange way. Not peaceful, just bloated with leftover noise and the aftertaste of too many people. I taped 2 signs to the front door. Private property, short-term lodging agreement required. Then I cleared the table of cereal bowls and half-finished mugs, laid the contracts out in a neat row, and set a pen beside each one. When Kinley came downstairs in a hoodie that wasn't hers, she stopped in her tracks. What is this? She asked. A lodging agreement, I said. She gave a short laugh, assuming I was joking. She skimmed the page, then looked at me, blinking like she couldn't believe it. You're serious? I didn't respond. I just unlocked the front door and stepped aside. Right on time, Deputy Clem walked in. We'd already spoken twice that week, once about noise complaints, once about zoning. He gave a nod and scanned the room. Morning. This the group? Kinley went pale. You called the police on your own family? I looked at her. No. I called the county. This is enforcement. Camden showed up in the hallway, rubbing sleep from his eyes, caught between us just like always. He looked at the contracts, the copies, the careful rows of papers, and the officer standing in his socks on the rug. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Deputy Clem cleared his throat. Everyone here needs to either sign the agreement or vacate by this evening. Kinley dropped the contract like it stung her fingers. You're unbelievable. I stayed calm. You can stay, Kinley. But not for free. Not anymore. Her voice cracked. You're really going to enforce this? I didn't blink. I already am. I handed Clem the first folder. Inside was everything: recorded calls, timestamps, occupancy regulations, neighborhood policies, every page numbered and highlighted. Camden crossed his arms, trying to soften the moment the way he always did. "Mom, come on. This is over the top. They're just here for a little while." But Clem shook his head. "Actually, sir, this is perfectly lawful. You were informed verbally and in writing. These aren't casual guests anymore, they're unauthorized occupants." From somewhere in the back, a cousin muttered something under his breath. Then Aunt Gwen spoke up, louder and sharper. She pointed at me like I was the problem. "You think you can charge your own family like it's a hotel?" I turned to her, calm and steady. "No, Gwen. You're not my family. You're Kinley's. You've never called on my birthday. Never invited me to your home. And for the past 5 days, I've been picking up after you like I work here." That shut the room up. A silence rippled out from the center like a dropped plate. Camden looked stunned, chewing the inside of his cheek. Same habit he had when he realized things couldn't be smoothed over. I gave Clem the next batch of documents, texts, emails, unanswered messages, all sorted, flagged, cross-referenced. Kinley stared at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. "You recorded me?" I didn't flinch. "I did." No one asked about Wi-Fi anymore. No one wondered what was for dinner. The whole house felt different, like the illusion had finally cracked. Clem looked over the room and asked, "Shall I start collecting signatures?" I nodded once. By sunset, the exodus had begun. Suitcases thumped down the stairs. Car trunks slammed shut. Voices, some sharp, some muttering, echoed through the driveway. Someone knocked over one of my flower pots on their way out. No apology. Just more footsteps, more engines starting. One of the younger cousins leaned out of a van window and shouted, "You'll die alone!" I didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. I stood at the edge of the driveway, clipboard in hand. It felt heavier than paper should, weighted with something that had been building inside me for years. Camden and Kinley walked out together. She wouldn't look at me until they reached the curb. "You made this hostile," she spat. I met her eyes. "No." I made it clear. Camden didn't say anything. Didn't defend me. He just slid into the passenger seat, pulled the door shut, and stared out the window. I stayed there until the last vehicle disappeared around the bend. The signs on the porch fluttered in the wind. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like absence. Felt like ownership. The house was finally still. No shouting from upstairs. No footsteps overhead. No bass lines rattling through the walls. Just quiet, and not the kind that hurts. The kind that holds you. I placed the clipboard on the kitchen counter, wiped away a sticky ring from someone's abandoned soda, took out the overflowing trash, and lit a small candle I'd been saving for this exact moment. Soft glow flickered across the tile. Then I saw the envelope. Camden's handwriting, neat, careful. The way he used to write on school assignments when he didn't want to lose points. One line inside. "I hope one day you realize how cold this was." No greeting. No sign-off. Just a sentence meant to leave a scar. I didn't break down. I didn't read it twice, hunting for softness. I folded it once, then again, and placed it in the fireplace. Watched it catch, curl, and vanish. I didn't clean up the mess right away. I made a call. The next morning, a cleaning crew arrived. 2 women, quick and kind. I made them tea, showed them where everything was, then let them work. I didn't scrub anything myself. I documented instead, every scratch, every stain, every missing towel. Photos. Notes. Logged hours. Then I sent Kinley the invoice. Attached was her signature on the lodging agreement, big and impatient, impossible to deny. The subject line read, "Final statement for your stay." No drama. No guilt. Just numbers. The same way she always treated me, like I was free labor, disposable space. But not anymore. Now it was all accounted for. I didn't wait for her reply. I closed the laptop, poured a strong cup of coffee into my favorite mug, the one with the tiny crack I always worried someone else might break, and sat by the window. The sky outside was pale and washed out. Kind that looks like a clean slate. Days passed quietly. No knocks on the door. No cars pulling up with coolers and folding chairs. The house started breathing differently, slow, steady, like it could finally relax. That first morning, I slipped on my gloves and went out to the garden. The soil was uneven where chairs had sunk in. Weeds had sprouted where feet had trampled the beds. I knelt, loosened the dirt, trimmed the lavender, and reset the stones they'd kicked aside. It was slow, quiet work. No one hovering, asking where the extension cords were. No one complaining that I didn't own a second air mattress. By noon, I brewed myself a cup of tea. Not in the chipped mugs everyone else had used, but in the delicate one I always kept hidden, the one with the fine crack along the side, the one I never trusted anyone else to handle. I used it because I finally could. Later, a neighbor I hadn't met yet waved from the sidewalk. Another dropped off a tin of muffins with a soft smile and a simple, "Welcome." No questions. No demands. Just kindness. The silence didn't feel like loneliness. Felt like restoration. My laundry basket sat empty. The sink sparkled. No one blasting music. No one yelling about oat milk or gluten-free bread. I opened the windows, not because the house was stuffy, but just because I wanted to. The air smelled new. The space didn't feel too big. Felt like it finally fit. Camden didn't call. Kinley didn't text. And I didn't feel forgotten. I felt lighter. Some kinds of peace don't arrive with applause. They arrive quietly with lowered shoulders and deep, clean air. I sat at the edge of the garden one afternoon and watched a squirrel chase its shadow. The wind chimes above me moved gently, their sounds soft and aimless, as if they no longer needed permission to sing. For years, I had lived like the wind wasn't mine, like everyone else controlled when I got to breathe. Now I set the rhythm. 2 nights ago, Kinley's name lit up on my phone. Then again yesterday. No voicemails, just missed calls and texts. Some polite, some angry. One that just said, "We need to talk." Camden messaged too, "Can we clear the air? It's been long enough." I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Not from bitterness. Just because I was done. This house was never supposed to be a free-for-all. It wasn't built to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. It was built for me. And now, finally, it feels like mine. The locks have been changed. The old porch sign that used to say, "Welcome," now says, "By appointment only." Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. The guest room stays tidy, but it doesn't make empty promises. I shop for one. Cook what I like. No longer juggling anyone else's preferences. A couple days after the last van drove off, I met with my lawyer. The deed didn't need a name change, mine was the only one ever on it. But we added something else. One simple sentence. Inheritance contingent on demonstrated respect. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. It was a line in the sand, finally drawn. A rule for people who mistook my silence for surrender. Kinley will call again. Camden too. But people who are used to taking always think boundaries are betrayal. This wasn't a fight. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to survive. Now the mornings are bright again. The lavender is blooming. The wind chimes only move when the breeze asks them to, not when someone storms through and demands sound. Respect doesn't need permission. Doesn't beg. Just is. I closed the last folder of signed documents and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not sadness, not relief. Just certainty. I placed the folder in the drawer next to the spare keys, locked it, and turned toward the light coming through the window. Cottage was still. Not empty. Full. I walked through each room. Side, the garden was alive again. Porch smelled like lavender, not soda. Kitchen was clean, my favorite mug exactly where I'd left it. Nothing disturbed. No one to undo it. Peace wasn't loud. Didn't arrive with a speech or a slam. It was just here now. Quiet. Solid. Real. This house wasn't a gift. It wasn't borrowed. It wasn't shared. It was mine. And after all this time, that was finally enough. Some people say closure comes with forgiveness. I don't believe that. For me, closure came with boundaries. And as the wind touched the chimes and let them sing again, I understood something simple and final. I didn't just protect a house. I reclaimed myself.